A luxury SUV is pulled over on a quiet suburban street. Flashing lights reflect off rain, slicked pavement. Officer Ryan Holden approaches the vehicle with an air of superiority, tapping his flashlight against the window. License and registration, he demands without explanation to Amara Wilson, a black woman in casual clothes. He makes her step out in the rain while he searches her vehicle. Camera pans to his hand, slipping a small bag into her glove compartment. "Well, well, what do we have here?" he announces loudly, holding up the planted evidence. Amara's eyes flash with recognition and quiet fury. Have you ever watched someone abuse their power, knowing they'd never face consequences? This isn't just another story about racial profiling. It's about the moment justice finally catches up. Amara Wilson appears, by all outward measures, to be an ordinary middle-class black woman. Her wardrobe consists of sensible slacks, modest blouses, and practical shoes that speak of comfort over fashion. She wears her natural hair in a conservative style, neither too bold nor too conforming. Her 5-year-old SUV, clean but unremarkable, blends perfectly into the diverse suburban landscape outside Washington, D.C., where neighbors know her as the private but reliably kind woman from the Blue House on Maple Street. Her morning routine unfolds with military precision. She wakes at 5:15 a.m. without an alarm, a habit formed over decades. The pre-dawn darkness finds her cross-legged on her bedroom floor, eyes closed in meditation, breathing regulated to a perfect rhythm. By 6 a.m., she's reviewing news from multiple sources, making mental notes of patterns most would miss. At 6:30, she prepares breakfast for her teenage daughter Zora: eggs, avocado toast, fresh fruit, and tucks a handwritten note into her lunch bag. "Remember who you are. Remember whose you are." Colleagues know her as a consultant with a vaguely defined government position. Her schedule includes frequent business trips, cryptic phone calls taken in private, and meetings that disappear from her calendar as soon as they conclude. She carries a nondescript government ID card that she rarely displays. Those who work alongside her describe her as intensely observant, analytical to the point of unnerving, and possessing a memory that borders on photographic. What they don't know, what almost no one knows, is that Amara Wilson is Director Wilson, the first black woman appointed to lead the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Her 25-year career in law enforcement began as a beat cop in Chicago's roughest neighborhoods, followed by a meteoric rise through detective ranks, federal prosecutor's office, then the Bureau itself. With a master's in criminal justice and a law degree from Harvard, she was the unexpected but undeniable choice for the director position. Her current focus: a massive internal investigation into systemic police corruption nationwide, with direct reporting to the president. The weight of her position is matched only by the weight of her personal history. Widowed 5 years ago when her husband Marcus was killed in what police called a random shooting, she's raised Zora alone since then, shielding her daughter from the media spotlight that would inevitably follow if their connection became public knowledge. Privately, she has never accepted the random nature of her husband's death, keeping her own parallel investigation active but compartmentalized from her official duties. Despite her authority and six-figure salary, Amara maintains her middle-class lifestyle by choice. She visits her elderly mother in South Chicago monthly, attends Zora's basketball games whenever possible, and still insists on mowing her own lawn, a meditative practice that keeps her connected to the ordinary world she's sworn to protect. Inside, however, she carries the burdens invisible to others: recurring nightmares about Marcus's unsolved murder, constant fear that her position puts Zora at risk, the relentless pressure of being the first black woman in a role where every decision is scrutinized through multiple lenses, political tensions threatening her reform agenda, and lately, growing doubt about whether the system can truly change from within or if she's merely becoming the acceptable face of a fundamentally broken structure. The rain-soaked morning of the traffic stop had begun like any other. Zora had a history exam, prompting an extra cup of tea and a longer-than-usual pep talk at breakfast. Amara had a meeting scheduled with the Attorney General about the police corruption investigation, specifically targeting departments with patterns of racially motivated drug arrests. The irony would strike her later. Officer Ryan Holden begins his patrol shift the way he always does, with absolute confidence in his authority and place in the world. His grandfather was police chief in this very suburb in the 1962nd. His father retired as a decorated lieutenant. The Holden name carries weight in law enforcement circles throughout the state. Ryan's badge gleams on his chest, polished to perfection each morning in a ritual of pride and entitlement. His department-issued SUV is immaculate, unlike the vehicles of his colleagues. The interior smells of expensive leather conditioner rather than fast food and coffee. His uniform is tailored, the creases sharp enough to cut paper. The gold watch on his wrist, a gift to himself after his promotion, costs more than 3 months of his official salary. The dashboard computer glows with the day's bulletins and reports. Ryan scrolls through them with casual disinterest. His real focus is on his personal target. 5 quality arrests this month to maintain his position as the department's top performer. The fact that over 80% of his arrests involve Black and Latino drivers is, to his mind, simply evidence of who the real criminals are. Dispatch. This is Unit 3-4, beginning patrol in Sector 7. He announces into his radio, voice crisp with authority. The affluent neighborhood of Oakwood Hills isn't technically his assigned area today, but he frequently extends his patrol boundaries. The department leadership never questions his methods, not with his arrest statistics. Ryan's routine is well established. He cruises the perimeter of Oakwood Hills, watching for vehicles that don't belong, older models, drivers who don't match the neighborhood demographics. He keeps a small Ziploc bag in his left breast pocket. It contains just enough cocaine to justify an arrest, but not enough to trigger higher-level trafficking charges. It's been replenished countless times over the years. The morning progresses slowly until he spots Amara's SUV turning onto Maple Avenue. Something about the vehicle catches his attention, not expensive enough for this neighborhood, driver too confident in her movements. He runs the plate, registered to Amara Wilson, address in the mixed-income neighborhood of Westbrook, 5 miles away, just on the edge of what he considers acceptable. He follows at a distance, watching. She signals properly at each turn, maintains perfect speed, stops completely at each sign. Her driving is flawless, suspiciously so, to his mind. People with nothing to hide don't drive that carefully. He activates his lights. Inside her vehicle, Amara notices the patrol car behind her. She's been aware of its presence for the past 3 minutes. Awareness of surroundings is second nature after decades in law enforcement. She checks her speed, exactly at the limit. Her turn signals, properly used. Her stop at the last sign, complete. There is no legitimate reason for this stop. The statistics flash through her mind, automatically data she reviews weekly in her role as director. Black drivers are 20% more likely to be stopped than white drivers in this county. Once stopped, they are 3 times more likely to be searched. When searched, they are twice as likely to be arrested, even though contraband is found more frequently in vehicles driven by white people. She pulls over, positioning her vehicle precisely. Hands visible on the steering wheel, engine off. Interior light on despite the daylight. Standard procedure for safety during traffic stops, but also the ritual familiar to every Black driver in America. Officer Holden approaches with deliberate slowness, hand resting casually on his weapon. The psychology is intentional, establishing dominance through manufactured tension. He taps his flashlight against her window unnecessarily. License and registration, he demands without preamble or explanation for the stop. Amara responds with practiced calm. "May I ask why I'm being pulled over, officer?" His expression hardens almost imperceptibly. "License and registration first, ma'am. We can discuss the reason after you comply." She retrieves her documents slowly, movements telegraphed to avoid misinterpretation. "Here you are, Officer Holden," she says, reading his nameplate. He takes the documents, studies them longer than necessary. "Step out of the vehicle, please." "May I ask why that's necessary?" "I've provided my propid." "Step out of the vehicle now, ma'am." His tone shifts from professional to commanding. Rain has begun to fall, light but steady. Amara complies, maintaining eye contact as she exits. Her lightweight blazer offers minimal protection from the weather. Officer Holden directs her to stand by the rear of the vehicle. "I'm going to search your car now." "Do you have probable cause for a search, Officer Holden? Or are you requesting consent? Because if it's the latter, I do not consent to a search of my vehicle." His smile doesn't reach his eyes. "I observed erratic driving patterns consistent with impairment, ma'am. That gives me probable cause. A lie, and they both know it. I'd like that documented in your report, please, along with your badge number, which island." She memorizes it, as he reluctantly provides the information. While Amara stands in the increasing rain, Holden begins his search. His movements are performance art, opening compartments with theatrical flair, running his hand beneath seats with exaggerated thoroughness. When he reaches the glove compartment, His body blocks the view from both his dash cam and Amara's position. The small bag transfers from his pocket to the compartment in one practiced motion. He continues searching for another minute before returning to the glove compartment with flourish. Well, well, what do we have here? He announces loudly, holding up the planted evidence for his body camera to capture. Amara's eyes flash with recognition and quiet fury. She's reviewed dozens of cases with this exact pattern during her investigation. The moment crystallizes her purpose. This isn't just about her now. It's about every person who stood where she stands, without the power she possesses. Those drugs are not mine, she states calmly, eyes fixed on his. They weren't in my vehicle before your search. Holden scoffs, performance escalating for the benefit of his body camera. That's what they all say, ma'am. You're under arrest for possession of a controlled substance. He reaches for his handcuffs with practiced efficiency. I'd like to speak with your supervising officer, Amara requests, still maintaining her composure despite the rain now soaking through her clothes. You can speak to whoever you want down at the station. He moves behind her, roughly positioning her hands for cuffing. You people always think you're special, don't you? Always think the rules don't apply. The handcuffs click into place, unnecessarily tight against her wrists. The cold metal bites into her skin, a sensation she hasn't felt since training at Quantico over 2 decades ago. The physical discomfort is nothing compared to the calculated humiliation of standing handcuffed in the rain, on display for any passing vehicles. Holden guides her toward his patrol car with a grip tighter than necessary. She notices his body camera has been mysteriously deactivated, another pattern consistent with the cases she's been investigating. As they reach his vehicle, a second patrol car pulls up, responding to Holden's earlier call for backup. Officer Sarah Reeves steps out. A younger officer Amara doesn't recognize. She assesses the situation with visible uncertainty. Got a live one here, Reeves, Holden announces with satisfaction. Found a bag of cocaine in the glove compartment. Classic case. Reeves nods hesitantly, eyes moving between Holden's triumphant expression and Amara's dignified silence. Something doesn't fit the usual script, but she's too junior to question her senior officer openly. I'll need her vehicle towed and processed, Holden continues. You take her in. I'll finish up the paperwork here. As Officer Reeves opens her patrol car's rear door, Amara speaks directly to her. Officer, I'd like to formally state that the drugs found in my vehicle were planted by Officer Holden. I request that your body camera remain activated throughout this process, and that my vehicle remain sealed until a proper investigation can be conducted. Holden's laugh is dismissive. Right, because I just happened to carry around cocaine to plant on random drivers. Reeves, get her out of here before she spins any more fantasies. Reeves hesitates, protocol warring with hierarchy. Sir, her statement is now on my camera. I should probably document this properly. Holden's expression darkens. Are you questioning my conduct, officer? The tension hangs in the rain-soaked air between them. Before Reeves can respond, another vehicle approaches an unmarked sedan that both officers immediately recognize as belonging to their precinct captain. The atmosphere shifts tangibly. Captain Thomas Elliott emerges from the sedan, rain beating on his immaculate uniform. What's the situation here, Holden? Holden straightens, confidence returning. Drug arrest, Captain. Found cocaine in her glove compartment during a routine traffic stop. Was just about to process her. Captain Elliott studies Amara with growing unease. There's something familiar about her, something that triggers a warning in his mind. And the reason for the initial stop? Holden falters momentarily. Erratic driving patterns, sir. Suspected impairment. I see. The captain turns to Amara. Ma'am, may I ask your name again? Amara Wilson, she replies, standing straight despite the handcuffs. Recognition flashes across the captain's features, quickly masked. He's seen her photo in confidential briefings. Officer Holden, remove those handcuffs immediately. Sir? Holden's confusion is genuine. Now, officer. The captain's tone leaves no room for argument. As Holden reluctantly complies, a black SUV with government plates pulls up to the scene. 2 men in suits emerge, moving with the unmistakable precision of federal agents. The captain's face has gone pale. Captain Elliott, one of the agents, acknowledges with a curt nod before turning to Amara. Director Wilson, are you all right? The word director lands like a thunderclap. Officer Reeves' mouth opens in shock. Holden freezes, the handcuffs dangling uselessly from his fingers. I'm fine, Agent Cortez, Amara responds, rubbing her wrists where the cuffs had been, though I believe we have a situation here that requires documentation. She turns to face Holden directly for the first time. Officer Ryan Holden just provided us with a perfect case study in evidence planting. I couldn't have orchestrated a better demonstration if I'd planned it. The world seems to stop rotating for a moment. Officer Holden's face transitions from confusion to disbelief to horror as understanding dawns. The evidence bag in his hand, the one he planted moments ago, suddenly feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Director Wilson? He repeats, voice barely audible. As in, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Agent Cortez confirms, his badge now visible. Director Amara Wilson. Your boss. Effectively. The rain continues to fall, indifferent to the human drama unfolding beneath it. For Amara, the moment brings no satisfaction, only confirmation of what she already knew. The system is broken in exactly the ways her investigation has been revealing, one department at a time. Secure the evidence, Agent Cortez, she directs calmly, and ensure Officer Holden's body camera footage is preserved, along with Officer Reeves. Captain Elliott, I'll need access to all of Officer Holden's arrest records for the past 5 years. Captain Elliott nods mechanically, career calculations visibly running behind his eyes. Of course, Director Wilson. We'll cooperate fully. Holden finds his voice at last. This is entrapment, he protests weakly. You set me up. Amara's laugh is soft, genuinely amused despite everything. Officer Holden, I was driving to a breakfast meeting. You chose to pull me over without cause. You chose to search my vehicle without consent. You chose to plant evidence. I made no choices in this interaction until now. She turns to face him fully. And now I choose to ensure you face the consequences of your actions, just as every citizen deserves equal treatment under the law. The scene has attracted attention. Residents emerge from nearby homes, smartphones recording. A local news van that happened to be in the area for an unrelated story pulls up, camera operator already capturing footage. For Amara, the public nature of this confrontation is unfortunate but perhaps necessary. She spent years working behind the scenes, building cases methodically. But sometimes justice needs witnesses. As Agent Cortez secures the planted evidence and Agent Rivera documents the scene, Amara's mind travels back to where this journey began, to the night 5 years ago that transformed her understanding of justice in America. The memory resurfaces with cinematic clarity. A warm summer evening, cicadas buzzing in the trees outside their Chicago home. Marcus had called to say he was running late. A partner meeting at his law firm had gone long. Save me some of that lasagna, he'd said, the smile evident in his voice even through the phone. I shouldn't be more than an hour. 2 hours later, Amara's phone rang again. Not Marcus, but Chicago PD, informing her that her husband had been shot during what they described as an apparent robbery gone wrong. By the time she reached the hospital, Marcus was already gone. The official report painted a simple picture. Wrong place, wrong time. Marcus Wilson, prominent attorney, caught in crossfire during a convenience store robbery. 3 shots, 2 fatal. Suspect fled the scene, never identified. Case eventually went cold. But Amara, then the assistant director of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division, saw inconsistencies immediately. The convenience store had no history of robberies. The bullet trajectories indicated a targeted shooting, not random crossfire. The missing surveillance footage, the responding officers' contradictory statements. Most damning of all, Marcus had been working on a major civil rights case against that very police department, representing families of unarmed black men killed during routine interactions with law enforcement. She launched her own investigation, quietly, methodically. What she uncovered was a pattern of retribution against those who challenged police impunity: attorneys, witnesses, activists. Marcus hadn't been the first, and without intervention, he wouldn't be the last. When the president nominated her for FBI director 6 months after Marcus's death, Amara accepted with a single private goal: to use her position to expose and dismantle the systems that protected corrupt officers. Not for vengeance, but for transformation. The growing crowd of onlookers creates an impromptu public square. Officer Holden stands frozen, his career disintegrating before his eyes. Captain Elliott attempts damage control, speaking urgently into his radio. The news crew inches closer, capturing every moment. Amara steps away from the chaos, accepting a coat from Agent Rivera despite the slowing rain. Her phone buzzes a text from Zora. Killed that history exam. See you tonight. The ordinary message from her extraordinary daughter grounds her amid the surreal scene. Director, Agent Cortez approaches, voice lowered. We've secured the evidence and Officer Holden's weapon. How do you want to proceed? Before she can answer, a sleek black government vehicle pulls up. The window lowers to reveal Thompson Wells, the Attorney General of the United States. His presence at this local traffic stop confirms what Amara already knows: this random incident has just become the tipping point for her entire investigation. I was on my way to our meeting when I got the call, Wells explains as he exits his vehicle. His eyes survey the scene with practiced calculation. Seems like you've had quite a morning. An illuminating one, Amara responds, and perfectly timed for our discussion about the pattern or practice investigation. Wells nods, understanding the significance. We should continue this conversation somewhere more private. Your office in an hour? Make it 2. I have some business to finish here first. Amara turns back toward Officer Holden, who stands conferring urgently with his police union representative, already summoned to the scene. The Attorney General follows her gaze. Are you sure you want to handle this personally? It could compromise the larger investigation if this becomes too public too soon. Amara considers this briefly. Sometimes justice needs a face, sir. And today, mine happens to be available. There's no satisfaction in her voice, only purpose. Wells departs as Captain Elliott approaches Amara cautiously. Director Wilson, I want to assure you that Officer Holden's actions don't represent our department. We have strict protocols against— Save it, Captain, Amara interrupts, her tone professional but unyielding. I've reviewed your department's arrest statistics, use of force incidents, and complaint dismissals. Officer Holden isn't an anomaly in your department. He's a symptom of systemic issues that your leadership has allowed to flourish. We'll be discussing all of this in detail very soon. She turns to Agent Cortez. I want Officer Holden brought to the federal building for questioning. By the book, every procedure perfect. No mistakes they can use later. Yes, Director, Cortez confirms, moving toward Holden and the union representative. Amara approaches Officer Reeves, who has maintained her position by her patrol car, visibly processing the unfolding situation. Officer Reeves, a moment? The young officer straightens nervously. Yes, ma'am, Director. You hesitated when Officer Holden instructed you to transport me. You questioned whether proper procedure was being followed. That took courage. Reeves swallows hard. Something didn't seem right. That instinct to question when something doesn't seem right, even when it comes from authority that's essential to real justice. We'll need your complete statement today. Of course, Director. Anything you need. Reeves pauses, then adds quietly, I've seen him do this before. To others. I should have said something sooner. Amara nods, understanding the complex position of officers who witness misconduct. Today's a new day, Officer Reeves, for all of us. As Agents Cortez and Rivera escort a stone-faced Officer Holden to their vehicle, Amara notices a familiar face in the growing crowd. Eleanor Michaels, legal correspondent for the Washington Post, recognizes her simultaneously. Director Wilson, Michaels calls, moving forward. Care to comment on what appears to be a federal operation regarding local law enforcement? Amara weighs her options quickly. Michaels is a respected journalist with a strong record on criminal justice issues. This moment requires strategic transparency. Miss Michaels, what you're witnessing is not a planned operation, but rather a spontaneous case of systemic issues in policing. I was personally subjected to racial profiling, illegal search, and evidence planting by Officer Holden. The FBI will be conducting a thorough investigation, not just of this incident, but of pattern or practice concerns throughout this department. Eleanor's eyes widen at the unprecedented statement from the typically reserved FBI director. Are you saying you were racially profiled and had drugs planted in your vehicle by a local officer who didn't recognize you? That's precisely what I'm saying. And while my position affords me immediate recourse, thousands of Americans face this same scenario without cameras, witnesses, or institutional power to protect them. That's the real story here, Miss Michaels. The journalist nods thoughtfully. Would you be willing to sit for an interview about this incident and its broader implications? When the initial investigation is complete, for now, I'll simply say that today demonstrates why our justice system requires constant vigilance and reform. No one should be above the law, and no one should be beneath its protection. As the crowd disperses and the official processing of the scene continues, Amara finds herself alone for a moment beside her SUV. She runs her hand along the hood, thinking of all the black and brown Americans who've stood exactly where she stood today, in the rain, humiliated, powerless, watching as evidence was manufactured against them. The difference is, her nightmare ended with the arrival of federal agents. For most, it's only the beginning of a journey through a system designed to presume their guilt. Her phone buzzes again, a text from her chief of staff. News already breaking about incident. White House called. Oversight Committee chair wants briefing ASAP. The machinery of Washington is already grinding into motion. She texts back a simple response. Proceeding as planned, this changes nothing and everything. 2 hours later, Amara sits in her office at FBI headquarters, the imposing J. Edgar Hoover building on Pennsylvania Avenue. The space reflects her approach to leadership. Organized, purposeful, without unnecessary ornamentation. The photographs on her credenza show Zora at various ages, her late husband Marcus, her mother in Chicago. No posed pictures with politicians or celebrities, despite countless opportunities. Attorney General Wells sits across from her desk, reviewing the preliminary report from the morning's incident. This is clean cut, he observes. Officer Holden's camera was conveniently deactivated, but Officer Reeves' camera captured his statements afterward. The planted evidence is being processed now. His prior arrests are being reviewed for patterns. He looks up. You've handed us a perfect test case. Amara nods. Not how I plan to spend my morning, but sometimes the universe provides what an investigation needs. The timing is remarkable, Wells agrees. 1 week before we plan to announce the nationwide investigation into police misconduct, and you personally experience exactly the behavior we're targeting. He pauses. Some will say it's too convenient. Let them. The evidence speaks for itself. More importantly, this incident provides a face and a story that people can understand. Statistics don't change hearts, stories do. Wells leans forward. The president is concerned about the political blowback. Police unions are already mobilizing. The law and order crowd will claim we're undermining policing itself. We're not undermining policing, Amara responds firmly. We're defending it. Every corrupt officer undermines the work of good officers and destroys community trust. Every planted evidence bag, every fabricated charge, every excessive use of force makes it harder for honest police to do their jobs. She stands and walks to the window overlooking Pennsylvania Avenue. I began my career as a beat cop in Chicago's South Side. I know what it means to put on that uniform, to serve with integrity. This isn't an attack on police, it's a defense of what policing should be. Wells studies her carefully. This case will make you a target, more than you already are. The president needs to know you can handle what's coming. Amara turns from the window. With all due respect to the president, I've been a target since the day I was born black and female in America. The difference is now I have the authority to do something about it. Her intercom buzzes. Director Wilson, Officer Holden, has been processed and is ready for initial questioning. Thank you, Diane. Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes. She turns back to the Attorney General. Will you observe? He nods, gathering his materials. Wouldn't miss it. The interrogation room is standard federal issue Spartan, functional, psychologically designed for maximum discomfort. Officer Ryan Holden sits alone at the table, still in his uniform, though his badge and weapon are gone. His initial cockiness has evaporated, replaced by the tense alertness of a man who suddenly realizes the depth of the hole he's dug for himself. Amara enters without fanfare, a simple folder in hand. No dramatics, no power plays. She takes the seat across from him, places the folder on the table, and meets his eyes directly. Officer Holden, I'm Director Wilson. We've met already, though the circumstances were quite different. He shifts uncomfortably. I want to explain what happened. There's been a misunderstanding. She raises her hand slightly, stopping him. Before you continue, I want to be absolutely clear. This room is recorded from multiple angles. Everything you say is being preserved as evidence. You have been read your rights and declined legal representation for this initial conversation, though I strongly advise you to reconsider that decision before formal charges are discussed. Holden swallows hard but nods. I understand. Good. Amara opens the folder and removes a single sheet of paper. This is a list of traffic stops you've conducted over the past month, 27 in total. Of those, 17 involved black drivers, 9 involved Hispanic drivers, 1 involved an Asian driver, 0 involved white drivers. She looks up. Do you find that ratio curious, given that your patrol area is 68% white? I don't look at race when I make stops, he responds automatically. I respond to suspicious behavior. And how do you define suspicious behavior, Officer Holden? He shifts again. Erratic driving, furtive movements, vehicles that don't match the neighborhood. Vehicles that don't match the neighborhood, she repeats thoughtfully. Like my 5-year-old SUV in Oakwood Hills this morning? Your vehicle had tinted windows. I couldn't see the driver clearly. My vehicle has the factory standard tint, well within legal limits. Try again. A flash of anger crosses his face. Look, I made a judgment call. That's what police work is, making judgment calls in the moment. Amara nods, acknowledging the point. Let's talk about another judgment call. The decision to plant cocaine in my glove compartment. Walk me through your thinking there. Holden's face pales. I didn't, Officer Holden. Her voice remains calm but takes on a razor's edge. We have the drugs with your fingerprints. We have your movements on Officer Reeves' camera. We have 5 years of similar complaints that were dismissed by Internal Affairs. And as of an hour ago, we have 3 of your former arrestees whose convictions were based on identical scenarios, all willing to testify. So I'll ask again, walk me through your thinking. The room falls silent. In the observation room, Attorney General Wells watches with colleagues from the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. Their investigation now has its smoking gun. Holden stares at the table, options diminishing by the second. Finally, he looks up, something like defeat in his eyes. What do you want from me? Amara closes the folder. The truth would be a start. But beyond that, I want what I've always wanted, a justice system that works equally for everyone. Your actions have denied that basic right to dozens, perhaps hundreds of citizens. I was doing my job, he insists, but the conviction has drained from his voice. No, Officer Holden, you were betraying your job. The oath you took wasn't to make arrests at any cost. It was to uphold the Constitution and serve your community. Every time you planted evidence, you broke that oath. She stands, gathering the folder. You'll be formally charged with multiple federal offenses. Your cooperation now could affect sentencing recommendations. I suggest you reconsider legal representation before our next conversation. As she turns to leave, Holden's voice stops her. Why were you there? In that neighborhood today? Was it a setup? Amara turns back, genuine surprise on her face. I was driving to a breakfast meeting, Officer Holden, just like I said earlier. The universe has a way of creating moments of perfect clarity when they're needed most. She pauses. Though I admit, when I became FBI director, I didn't expect to personally experience the very crimes I'm investigating. So in a way, I should thank you. You've given our case exactly what it needed, irrefutable evidence and a compelling narrative. The door closes behind her with quiet finality. In the hallway, Agent Cortez waits with an update. Director, we've identified 7 more cases with identical patterns from Officer Holden's record. And the department's Internal Affairs Division just delivered their files, which appear to have been selectively edited. Expand the investigation to include the IA Division and Captain Elliott, she instructs. This goes beyond a single officer. By evening, the story has exploded across national media. Amara's SUV pulling away from the scene, Officer Holden being escorted to a federal vehicle, the rain-slicked street where justice took an unexpected turn, all play on endless loops on news channels. Number Director Wilson trends nationwide, alongside number planted evidence and number policing reform. At home, Amara prepares a simple dinner as Zora completes her homework at the kitchen island. The teenager glances up from her textbook. Mom, you're all over Twitter. Someone from school sent me a video of you getting arrested this morning. Said it was the coolest thing they'd ever seen. Amara smiles wryly. Not exactly how I planned for my work to intersect with your high school social life. Are you kidding? It's amazing. You're like a real-life superhero, taking down corrupt cops, fighting the system from the inside. Zora's eyes shine with pride. Dad would have loved this. The mention of Marcus softens Amara's expression. He would have had a perfectly crafted legal argument ready by dessert, she agrees, remembering her husband's brilliant legal mind. And then he would have stayed up half the night drafting motions. Zora places her textbook aside. Are you in danger? Because of this case? The question hangs in the air, the one Amara has dreaded since accepting the director position. She considers deflecting, but decides her daughter deserves the truth. There's always risk in this work, she admits, sitting beside Zora. But hiding from that risk means accepting injustice. Your father taught me that. He knew the dangers of challenging powerful systems, but he did it anyway. Because it was right, Zora completes the thought, a mantra she's grown up hearing. Because it was right, Amara confirms. And because someone has to stand in the gap between what is and what should be. Zora nods slowly, processing. Is that why you don't live in a fancy house or have security guards like other important people? To stay connected to real life? Amara smiles at her daughter's perceptiveness. Partly. But mostly because this was the life your father and I built together. And because privilege can become a wall that separates you from truth. She squeezes Zora's hand. Now finish that homework. Even FBI directors can't get extensions on algebra. The next morning brings a storm of activity. Amara's secure phone rings at 5:08 a.m. Her chief of staff, Catherine Reynolds, calling with updates. The Oakwood Hills Police Union issued a midnight statement calling Officer Holden's arrest a politically motivated witch hunt, Catherine reports. They're demanding his immediate release and your resignation. Amara sips her tea, unsurprised. And the department? Distancing themselves faster than Olympic sprinters. The mayor has called for a complete independent investigation and suspended 3 additional officers pending review. Progress, Amara notes. What about public reaction? Mixed, but trending positive. Your statement about equal justice is resonating. The video has over 7 million views already. Number Director Wilson is still trending, now alongside number I Stand with Amara. After completing her briefing, Catherine adds more personally. How are you, really? Yesterday couldn't have been easy, professional victory aside. Amara considers the question. I kept thinking about all the people who experience what I did, without my resources or authority. How many lives have been destroyed by officers like Holden? How many families separated, careers ended, futures derailed because someone with power decided they looked suspicious? And now those stories are being told, Catherine points out. The Washington Post has interviews with 3 people who say Holden planted evidence on them. NPR is running a series on evidence planting nationally. You've cracked open the conversation. After preparing breakfast for Zora, Amara drives to FBI headquarters, mind cataloging next steps. The investigation must be methodical, the case airtight. Holden is just the beginning, one officer in one department. The pattern extends nationwide, protected by a culture of silence and systems designed to shield misconduct from accountability. Her security detail, finally insisted upon by the Attorney General after yesterday's events, follows discreetly in a separate vehicle. Another adjustment to her carefully constructed normalcy, another reminder that her 2 worlds have now publicly collided. In her office, the leadership team has assembled for an emergency strategy session. Deputy Director Marcus Conley, a 30-year bureau veteran who initially resisted Amara's appointment but has since become her strongest internal ally, begins the briefing. Officer Holden has obtained counsel Patricia Simmons from the Police Defense Fund. She's already making noise about entrapment and political persecution. Amara nods, having anticipated this development. Their strategy will be to make this about me personally rather than Holden's actions or the larger pattern. We stay focused on the evidence, which is substantial, adds Cynthia Washington, head of the criminal division. The preliminary analysis of Holden's arrest records shows a clear pattern of racial targeting and evidence inconsistencies. We've identified 27 cases with high probability of planted evidence over the past 3 years. The department has suspended him without pay, Conley continues. But the union is fighting it. Captain Elliott has announced early retirement, effective immediately. Rats fleeing the ship, Washington comments dryly. What's our approach to the media? Asks Communications Director James Park. We've had 17 interview requests since last night, including all major networks and print outlets. Amara considers this carefully. I'll do one sit-down with Eleanor Michaels at the Post. She understands the complexity and won't sensationalize. The rest we handle through official statements focusing on the pattern or practice investigation, not my personal experience. The meeting continues, each division reporting on their piece of the rapidly expanding investigation. What began with one traffic stop has catalyzed the largest federal investigation into police misconduct in decades. As the team disperses, Deputy Director Conley remains behind. You know they're going to come after you personally, he says once they're alone. Holden's lawyers, the police unions, the law and order politicians, they'll dig into your past, your family, try to discredit you any way they can. I know, Amara acknowledges. I've been preparing for this since I took the oath. My life can withstand scrutiny. And Marcus's death? Conley asks quietly. Are you prepared for them to exploit that? To suggest your investigation is about personal vengeance rather than justice? The question lands like a physical blow, but Amara maintains her composure. They can suggest whatever they want. The evidence speaks for itself. And if they want to discuss Marcus, they'll only amplify our message that the system fails too many people, including a respected attorney who threatened no one but happened to be black in America. Conley nods, satisfied. In the years they've worked together, he's never seen her lose focus, even when the personal and professional collide. The Attorney General called. He wants you at the White House at noon. The President wants a briefing. The Oval Office has always struck Amara as smaller than it appears on television, a reminder that even the most powerful position in the world is still occupied by a human being with limitations. The President rises as she enters, extending his hand. Director Wilson, quite the past 24 hours you've had. Mr. President, she acknowledges with a nod. Attorney General Wells sits in one of the armchairs, along with the White House Chief of Staff. Please, sit, the President gestures. Once they're settled, he continues, I've been briefed on yesterday's incident and the larger investigation. Extraordinary circumstances, to say the least. Yes, sir. The political fallout is already significant. Police unions across the country are mobilizing. Conservative media is framing this as a war on police. 3 senators have called for oversight hearings. Amara maintains eye contact. We anticipated resistance, Mr. President. The evidence supports our actions. The President studies her carefully. You understand that your personal involvement complicates matters. It creates the appearance of what, sir? Amara interrupts, something she rarely does. Of a federal official experiencing exactly the injustice our investigation targets? I would suggest it clarifies rather than complicates. The Chief of Staff shifts uncomfortably at her directness. The President, however, smiles slightly. You've never been one to mince words, Director Wilson. It's why I supported your appointment. He leans forward. I'm not suggesting we back down. I'm making sure you're prepared for what comes next. This case will be tried in public opinion long before it reaches any courtroom. With respect, Mr. President, public opinion has been ignoring these injustices for decades. Perhaps it's time for a public reckoning. The meeting continues, covering operational details, political considerations, and communication strategy. Throughout, Amara maintains her position. The investigation will proceed based on evidence, not political expedience. As she prepares to leave, the President asks the others for a moment alone with her. When the door closes, his formal demeanor softens. Amara, we've known each other 15 years since you testified before my Senate committee. I've always respected your integrity and judgment. He pauses. This isn't just about Holden or even police misconduct, is it? This is about Marcus. She hadn't expected this personal turn. Marcus's case informed my understanding of the system's failures. But this investigation stands on its own evidence. I remember his funeral, the President continues. Your eulogy. You said justice delayed is not justice denied. He studies her face. You never believed it was a random shooting. The evidence didn't support that conclusion, she states carefully. But my personal loss is separate from my professional responsibilities. Is it? Can it be? He sighs. I'm not questioning your motives or your judgment. I'm asking, as someone who cares, are you prepared for what might come to light if you pull this thread? Not just about police departments, but potentially about Marcus's death? Amara feels a chill despite the room's warmth. Are you suggesting there's information about my husband's murder that I don't have, that the federal government has withheld? No, nothing like that, he assures her quickly. I'm suggesting that complex systems protect themselves in unpredictable ways. You start investigating corrupt officers. You might find connections to prosecutors, judges, politicians. The web could extend in directions that shock even you. She absorbs this, the implications clear. Then it's even more important that we continue, whatever the cost. The President nods, seemingly satisfied. That's what I needed to hear. You have my full support, Director Wilson. Whatever resources you need. As Amara leaves the White House, her secure phone buzzes with a text from Agent Cortez, Officer Holden requesting meeting. Says he has information about larger operations and people above him. Wants deal. The pieces begin to move faster now. By evening, Officer Ryan Holden sits once again in the federal interrogation room, this time with his attorney present. The swagger has been replaced by nervous calculation. Across from him, Amara and federal prosecutor Elena Diaz wait patiently. My client has valuable information, Attorney Patricia Simmons begins, her tone professional but strained. Information about departmental practices, supervisory involvement, and potential criminal conspiracies beyond his individual actions. "We're listening," Prosecutor Diaz responds neutrally. Holden leans forward. "What happened yesterday, it wasn't just me. It's how we're trained, how we're expected to operate. Captain Elliott doesn't just know about it, he coordinates it." "Coordinates what, exactly?" Amara asks, voice level. "The quotas, the targeted neighborhoods, the plants when necessary." Holden glances at his attorney, who nods encouragement. "We have monthly meetings where they give us the focus areas, always the same neighborhoods, the same demographics. They call it proactive policing officially, but everyone knows what it really island." "And the planted evidence?" Prosecutor Diaz presses. "Is that also department policy?" Holden shifts uncomfortably. "Not officially, but there's an understanding. If certain metrics aren't met, your performance review suffers. Your overtime gets cut. You get assigned to desk duty. So you planted drugs on innocent citizens to meet quotas," Amara summarizes, her calm masking deep disgust. "Not always," he protests weakly. "Sometimes they were guilty of something else, just not what we could prove. Sometimes it was just convenience." "Convenience," Amara repeats, the word hanging in the air like poison. Holden's attorney intervenes. "My client is prepared to provide detailed testimony about the department's systematic targeting of minority communities, the pressure from superiors to maintain arrest quotas, and specific instances of evidence planting directed by Captain Elliott and others." Prosecutor Diaz nods professionally. "That could certainly be valuable information, counselor. However, your client is facing multiple federal charges with substantial evidence. Any cooperation would need to be comprehensive and verifiable." The negotiation continues, the details of a potential plea agreement taking shape. Holden's testimony could break open the entire department, providing the foundation for the broader nationwide investigation. Yet Amara feels no triumph, only a deep sadness at the confirmation of how thoroughly the system has failed those it should protect. As Holden provides preliminary details, names, dates, specific incidents, a pattern emerges of systematic targeting, evidence manipulation, and supervisory complicity. What he describes isn't the action of a few bad apples, but an orchard cultivated to produce a specific poisonous fruit. Later that evening, Eleanor Michaels conducts the promised interview in Amara's office. The veteran journalist has covered criminal justice for 20 years, earning respect from all sides for her thorough research and balanced reporting. "Director Wilson, you've had an extraordinary 48 hours, Michaels begins once the cameras are rolling. "You experienced personally what your investigation has been examining nationally. Was that simply coincidence?" "Complete coincidence," Amara confirms. "I was driving to a breakfast meeting through Oakwood Hills, a route I've taken many times before. Officer Holden made the choice to pull me over, search my vehicle without consent, and plant evidence. I made no choices until after his actions were complete. Your critics suggest this incident is being exploited for political purposes, to advance an anti-police agenda." Amara meets her gaze steadily. "There's nothing political about equal justice under law. That's not a partisan value, it's an American principle. And there's nothing anti-police about holding corrupt officers accountable. In fact, honest officers are the most harmed by corruption in their ranks." The interview continues, Amara carefully balancing transparency about the investigation with appropriate professional restraint. She discusses the broader patterns uncovered, the statistical evidence of discriminatory policing, and the nationwide initiative to address these systemic issues. "You lost your husband 5 years ago to gun violence," Michaels notes, approaching the personal territory Amara had anticipated. "Some suggest that loss has influenced your approach to law enforcement accountability. My experiences shape me, as everyone's do," Amara acknowledges. "But this investigation is driven by evidence, not emotion. The data on discriminatory policing practices is overwhelming and has been for decades. The only difference now is that we have the political will to address it." As the interview concludes, Michaels asks a final question. "What would you say to the thousands of Americans who have experienced what you did 2 days ago, but without your power and position to protect them?" Amara pauses, the weight of the question deserving careful consideration. "I would say, we see you, we hear you. Your experiences are finally being validated by the highest levels of law enforcement. And most importantly, we are acting to ensure that these injustices stop." She meets the camera directly. "Justice delayed is not justice denied. That's not just a saying, it's my solemn commitment." The days that follow bring a whirlwind of developments. Officer Holden's cooperation leads to search warrants for Captain Elliott's home and office, yielding evidence of a coordinated effort to target minority communities for enhanced enforcement. 5 additional officers come forward with corroborating testimony after being granted limited immunity. The Washington Post publishes Michael's interview alongside a comprehensive investigation into nationwide patterns of evidence planting. Other media outlets follow, producing special reports and documentaries examining racial disparities in policing. Social media erupts with thousands sharing their own experiences of questionable police encounters, many painfully similar to what Amara experienced. The hashtag number, #WhatIfIWas Director Wilson, trends for days, highlighting how differently these incidents end for ordinary citizens. At FBI headquarters, the task force expands to handle the flood of information now pouring in from across the country. What began as a methodical investigation has become a movement for transformation. 1 week after the traffic stop, Amara stands before a bank of microphones at the Justice Department. Beside her, the Attorney General prepares to announce the formal launch of a nationwide investigation into discriminatory policing practices, evidence manipulation, and accountability failures. The room is packed with journalists, legal experts, civil rights leaders, and law enforcement representatives. The tension is palpable, the culmination of decades of activism meeting centuries of entrenched practice. Attorney General Wells speaks first, outlining the legal framework for the investigation and the preliminary findings that justify this unprecedented federal action. When he introduces Amara, the room falls silent. She approaches the podium with measured confidence. The prepared statement sits before her, but she sets it aside, choosing instead to speak directly from her experience, both personal and professional. 1 week ago, I experienced what thousands of Americans have endured for generations, being targeted because of my appearance, subjected to illegal search, and having evidence planted to justify an arrest. The only difference in my case was that my position afforded me immediate vindication. For countless others, that moment of traffic stop becomes months or years of legal battles, family separation, job loss, and irreparable harm to their futures. She pauses, scanning the room. This investigation isn't about a single incident or even a single department. It's about patterns of conduct that undermine the foundation of equal justice. When evidence is planted, when force is used disproportionately, when accountability systems fail, we all lose. Communities lose trust in those sworn to protect them. Good officers lose public support essential to their work, and our justice system loses its most precious asset, legitimacy. The cameras flash continuously as she continues. To those who claim we're attacking law enforcement, we are defending the noble profession of policing from those who corrupt it. To those who say change is impossible, we've already begun to see departments across the country implementing reforms in just 1 week. And to those who have suffered these injustices silently, your experiences matter, your voices are being heard, and your government is finally taking action. As questions erupt from the assembled journalists, Amara navigates them with the skill of someone who has prepared her entire career for this moment. The announcement dominates news cycles nationwide, forcing a conversation too long avoided in American society. That evening, as Amara helps Zora with college application essays at their kitchen table, her secure phone rings. The caller ID displays unknown, but she recognizes the Chicago area code. "Director Wilson," she answers professionally. "Miss Wilson." The voice is male, elderly, vaguely familiar. "You don't know me, but I was the responding detective when your husband was killed 5 years ago." Amara freezes, signaling to Zora that she needs privacy. Moving to her home office, she closes the door. "Detective?" "Reynolds. James Reynolds. Retired now 2 years. I've been watching the news, seeing what you're doing with this police accountability investigation." He pauses. "There are things about your husband's case you should know. Things I couldn't tell you then." The air seems to leave the room. "I'm listening, Detective Reynolds." "Not over the phone. Too many ears still listening, even after retirement." His voice drops lower. "I kept copies of everything. The real ballistics report, the witness statements that disappeared, the connection to the lawsuit he was working on." Amara grips the phone tighter. "When can we meet?" "Tomorrow. The coffee shop at Michigan and Randolph. 10 a.m. He pauses. "Come alone. No security detail, no agents, just you." Every instinct honed through decades in law enforcement screams against such an arrangement, Yet the possibility of finally understanding what happened to Marcus overrides professional caution. I'll be there. Miss Wilson, the detective adds before hanging up. Be careful who you trust. This goes higher than you think. The line goes dead, leaving Amara standing in perfect stillness, the past and present colliding with seismic force. For 5 years, she's channeled her grief into systematic change, building an unassailable case for reform. Now, the personal and professional threads of her mission are about to intertwine in ways she couldn't have predicted. The next morning finds Amara on a commercial flight to Chicago, having slipped away without her security detail, a decision that would infuriate her team if they knew. She's dressed inconspicuously: jeans, sweater, baseball cap, glasses, the ordinary clothes of an ordinary woman, not the FBI director at the center of national controversy. Chicago embraces her with familiar sounds and scents as she exits O'Hare. This city shaped her, its streets, communities, and complexities, forged her understanding of justice and its absence. She takes public transportation downtown, another layer of anonymity. The coffee shop at Michigan and Randolph is busy with late-morning customers, tourists, business people, students. Amara selects a corner table with clear sightlines to all entrances, a habit that predates her FBI training. At precisely 10 a.m., an elderly black man in a worn tweed jacket enters. Detective James Reynolds has aged visibly since she last saw him at Marcus's funeral, his frame more stooped, his movements deliberate. He scans the room with the practiced eye of a career investigator before spotting Amara. "Thank you for coming," he says quietly as he takes the seat opposite her. "No handshake, no pleasantries. I wasn't sure you would. Information about my husband's case would bring me anywhere," Amara responds, studying him carefully. "What couldn't you tell me 5 years ago?" Reynolds glances around before removing a worn manila envelope from inside his jacket. Marcus's death wasn't random. It wasn't even about him personally. It was about the case he was working on. The police brutality lawsuit, Amara confirms, against Chicago PD's Tactical Response Unit. Reynolds nods, but it went beyond excessive force. Marcus had uncovered evidence of a coordinated operation between certain TRU officers and major drug distributors, protection in exchange for a percentage. When dealers stepped out of line or competition moved in, these officers would stage raids, plant evidence, make arrests, maintaining the illusion of law enforcement while actually controlling who operated and where. He slides the envelope across the table. The ballistics report was falsified. The bullet that killed Marcus matched a service weapon belonging to Officer Thomas Mercer, TRU team leader and primary defendant in your husband's lawsuit. Amara's hand trembles slightly as she opens the envelope, the first visible crack in her composed exterior. Inside are photocopied reports, witness statements, photographs, and a handwritten timeline. "Why are you giving me this now?" she asks, voice steady despite the emotional earthquake beneath. Reynolds sighs heavily. "I was 3 months from retirement when it happened. I had grandkids, a pension on the line. They made it clear what would happen if I pursued certain angles." Shame clouds his features. "I told myself I'd come forward later when it was safer. Then years passed, and the moment never seemed right." He meets her eyes directly. "Until I saw you standing in the rain while some uniform planted drugs in your car. History repeating itself. I couldn't stay silent any longer." "Who is they?" Amara presses. "Who warned you off the investigation?" "It went up the chain. Deputy commissioner at least, maybe higher. There were federal connections too. Someone from the U.S. Attorney's Office called my captain directly. The implication lands with crushing weight. The corruption doesn't stop at departmental boundaries. It extends into federal justice systems, the very institutions Amara now leads. The evidence is all there," Reynolds continues. "Enough to reopen the case, probably enough to convict Mercer. But be careful. The same people who buried this 5 years ago are still in power. Some have moved up even further." As Amara processes this information, her trained eye catches something through the window, a black SUV slowing as it passes the coffee shop, windows tinted beyond legal limits. Her instincts flash warning signals. "We need to leave. Now." She gathers the envelope with practiced efficiency. Separately, "Is there a back exit?" Reynolds nods, cop instincts similarly activated. "Through the kitchen." "What did you see?" "Vehicle that doesn't belong, moving too slowly. Could be nothing. But we're both too experienced to ignore it," he finishes. "I'll go first. Draw attention if there is any. You follow 30 seconds later." Before he rises, Amara touches his arm briefly. "Thank you." Detective Reynolds, "for doing the right thing, even if it took time." He nods once, then moves toward the back with casual purpose. Just another customer heading to the restroom. Amara waits, counting seconds, the envelope now secured inside her jacket. When Reynolds doesn't return a good sign, she follows his path, moving unhurriedly through the busy cafe. The kitchen staff barely notices her passage, assuming she belongs wherever she's going with such confidence. The service alley behind the building is narrow, damp from recent rain, empty except for delivery containers and garbage bins. She turns right, walking briskly but not running, maintaining the demeanor of someone with legitimate business. 2 blocks later, she enters a department store, takes the escalator up, then down again, exiting through a different door. Basic counter-surveillance techniques, ingrained through decades of training. Only when she's certain she isn't followed does she hail a taxi to take her to a different hotel than the one where she left her minimal luggage. In the privacy of a newly booked room, she finally examines the documents thoroughly. The evidence is damning and comprehensive. Reynolds had methodically documented the cover-up from within, collecting copies of original reports before they were altered, preserving witness statements later stricken from official records. Most devastating is the ballistics match to Officer Mercer's service weapon and the subsequent falsified report claiming inconclusive results. Phone records show Mercer was in the vicinity of the convenience store at the time of the shooting. Witness statements describe a police-type vehicle leaving the scene immediately after the shots. The final document is a memo from the Deputy Commissioner ordering the case classified as random street violence and investigation resources redirected to more promising cases. The date stamp is merely 2 days after Marcus's death before any meaningful investigation could have been completed. Amara sits in perfect stillness as the truth crystallizes. Her husband's murder wasn't just covered up, it was orchestrated by the very systems charged with delivering justice. The realization doesn't bring the emotional collapse one might expect, but rather a cold, clarifying fury and renewed purpose. On the flight back to Washington, she formulates her strategy. The nationwide police accountability investigation provides the perfect framework to pursue this case without telegraphing her specific interest in Mercer and the Chicago connection. She'll need a small, trusted team, perhaps only Cortez and Washington, whose loyalty she trusts implicitly. By the time the plane touches down at Reagan National Airport, her plan has taken shape. This isn't just about personal justice for Marcus anymore, it's about exposing the full depth of corruption that connects local police misconduct to federal systems. The same patterns that led to Officer Holden planting drugs in her car connect directly to the forces that took her husband's life. 3 weeks after her fateful traffic stop, the investigation has expanded to 17 departments across 12 states. Officer Holden's cooperation has proven invaluable, with his testimony corroborated by department records and 5 other officers who've come forward. Captain Elliott faces multiple federal charges, and the mayor has appointed a civilian oversight committee with actual enforcement authority. The public conversation has shifted dramatically. News programs that once reflexively defended police actions now host substantive discussions about accountability and reform. Communities report improved interactions with law enforcement as departments nationwide proactively implement policy changes to avoid federal scrutiny. Amara has become the reluctant face of this transformation, her dignified response to personal injustice resonating across political divides. Even traditional law and order advocates find it difficult to dismiss the evidence when presented by an FBI director with an impeccable record. In her office at FBI headquarters, Amara meets privately with Agents Cortez and Washington, her most trusted team members. The door is locked, electronic devices secured outside, precautions that raise eyebrows but generate no questions given the sensitivity of the national investigation. "What I'm about to share goes no further than this room," Amara begins, placing Reynolds' envelope on the desk. "This is evidence regarding my husband's murder 5 years ago. Evidence suggesting it wasn't random violence but a targeted assassination connected to his legal case against Chicago PD's Tactical Response Unit." As they review the documents, Cortez and Washington's expressions shift from professional interest to shock to controlled anger. "This is comprehensive," Washington observes, examining the ballistics report, Mercer's service weapon, and a departmental cover-up ordered from the top. Cortez studies the timeline. The deputy commissioner who ordered the case closed is now Chicago's police commissioner, and the assistant U.S. attorney who apparently intervened is currently a federal judge. "Exactly," Amara confirms. "The corruption extends beyond departments to the federal judiciary. which means we trust no one outside this room. How do you want to proceed? Cortez asks, already mentally assembling resource needs. We use the national investigation as cover. Chicago is already on our list for pattern or practice review. We focus on the tactical response unit as part of that broader investigation, building a case that leads naturally to Mercer and the cover-up. Amara's voice remains perfectly controlled, her emotions channeled into methodical planning. But we maintain absolute compartmentalization. No one outside this room connects this to Marcus's case until we've secured all the evidence. Washington nods thoughtfully. We'll need digital forensics on the altered reports, interviews with witnesses who might still be available, financial records for Mercer and the other officers involved, and protection for Detective Reynolds, Cortez adds. If they realize he's come forward, he's in immediate danger. Amara acknowledges this with a grim nod. I've already arranged secure housing through personal channels, not bureau resources. His official status is on extended vacation visiting family in Arizona. The planning continues. 3 brilliant investigators constructing an approach that will expose the truth while navigating the treacherous reality that some of those they're investigating sit in positions of significant power. As the meeting concludes, Washington asks the question hanging unspoken in the air. Director, when this connects back to Marcus's murder and eventually it will, there will be allegations that the entire national investigation was motivated by personal vengeance. Amara meets her gaze steadily. The evidence of systemic police misconduct exists independently of my husband's case. One officer planting drugs in my car doesn't invalidate the thousands of similar cases we've documented nationwide. Truth stands on its own, regardless of how or why it comes to light. Cortez nods in agreement but adds, they'll still use it to try to discredit everything we've accomplished. Let them try, Amara responds, a rare flash of emotion breaking through her professional demeanor. Some things are worth fighting for, regardless of the personal cost. The investigation proceeds with methodical precision over the following months. Chicago's Tactical Response Unit comes under scrutiny as part of the broader national initiative. Officer Mercer, now a lieutenant, initially projects confidence when interviewed by federal investigators unaware that they possess the original ballistics report and witness statements. The case builds incrementally, each piece of evidence secured through proper channels, each witness statement meticulously documented. Amara remains officially distant from the Chicago investigation, focusing publicly on national patterns while Cortez and Washington handle the fieldwork that will eventually connect to Marcus's murder. 6 months after the traffic stop that catalyzed the national reckoning, Amara stands at her office window watching night settle over Washington. The city's monuments glow against the darkness, symbols of ideals, still imperfectly realized. Her secure phone buzzes with a text from Cortez. It's done. Warrants approved. Arrests tomorrow morning. After years of patient work, first building her career to a position with the authority to effect real change, then constructing an unassailable case for reform justice is finally within reach, both for the systemic abuses she's fought professionally and for the personal loss that fueled her determination. The next morning, coordinated raids across Chicago result in 14 arrests, including Lieutenant Thomas Mercer, former Deputy Commissioner, now Commissioner, William Hargrove, and 3 federal officials implicated in the cover-up. The charges range from civil rights violations to obstruction of justice to first-degree murder in Marcus Wilson's death. The press conference announcing these developments is led by the Chicago field office, with Amara making only brief remarks acknowledging the significant development in the ongoing national investigation. Nothing in her public statements connects these arrests to her husband's case. That revelation will come through proper legal channels during prosecution. That evening, Amara and Zora visit Marcus's grave for the first time in months. The cemetery is peaceful in the fading light, autumn leaves creating a tapestry of red and gold around the simple headstone. Do you think Dad would be proud? Zora asks, placing fresh flowers beside the granite marker. Beyond words, Amara answers, her composure finally giving way to quiet tears. He always believed the system could work if people of courage demanded better. Even when evidence suggested otherwise, he never gave up that faith. Like mother, like daughter, Zora observes with a gentle smile. Neither of you gives up. They stand together in companionable silence as twilight deepens around them. For the first time in 5 years, Amara feels a weight lifting, not just the burden of unresolved grief, but the heavier burden of injustice, without remedy. What happens now? Zora asks eventually. With the investigation? With everything? The work continues, Amara responds thoughtfully. Arresting those responsible for your father's death doesn't fix the system that protected them. Real transformation takes time, persistence, and constant vigilance. As they walk back toward the cemetery gates, Amara reflects on the journey that brought her here. From Chicago beat cop to FBI director. From grieving widow to architect of national reform. From victim of a corrupt officer's abuse of power to catalyst for systemic change. 1 year to the day after Officer Ryan Holden pulled over an ordinary-looking SUV in a suburban neighborhood, Amara Wilson stands at a podium at the Justice Department. Behind her, a visual display shows statistics from the National Police Accountability Initiative. 347 officers charged with civil rights violations, 42 departments under consent decrees, 1,824 convictions overturned due to evidence of misconduct, civilian complaints down 31% in reformed departments, use of force incidents reduced by 44%. More meaningful than these numbers are the faces, rows of citizens whose wrongful convictions have been overturned, families reunited after years of separation, communities reporting renewed trust in law enforcement. 1 year ago today, Amara begins, her voice carrying the quiet authority that has become familiar to Americans through countless interviews and testimonies. I experienced personally what thousands of citizens have endured for generations. That moment standing in the rain while evidence was planted in my vehicle connected me directly to a system of injustice that many had dismissed as exaggerated or isolated. The room is silent, journalists and officials alike captured by the rare moment of personal reflection from the usually reserved FBI director. Today, I'm not here to celebrate statistics, though the numbers show meaningful progress. I'm here to acknowledge the human impact of reformed systems. Every data point represents a person whose dignity has been restored, whose rights have been recognized, whose humanity has been affirmed. She gestures to the display behind her. These improvements weren't achieved by dismantling law enforcement, but by demanding it live up to its highest purpose. The most significant changes have come from within departments themselves. As good officers, the vast majority have been empowered to uphold standards of conduct that honor their badge. Among those seated in the front row is Officer Sarah Reeves, now Sergeant Reeves, who has become an advocate for accountability within her department. Beside her sits Thomas Reynolds, the retired detective whose courage helped solve Marcus Wilson's murder. Zora Wilson watches from the side, pride evident in her expression. The work is far from complete, Amara continues. Transforming entrenched systems requires sustained commitment beyond news cycles or political terms. It requires all of us, law enforcement, communities, courts, media, and citizens, to insist on justice that applies equally regardless of race, wealth, or status. As she concludes her remarks, Amara acknowledges the personal journey that has accompanied the professional one. My husband Marcus believed that justice, though sometimes delayed, is never ultimately denied if people of principle persist in demanding it. Today's progress honors that belief and recommits us to the ongoing work of creating a system worthy of our highest ideals. The press conference transitions to questions, which Amara handles with characteristic precision. Afterward, she meets privately with families whose loved ones were victims of the same corrupt systems that took Marcus's life, not as FBI director, but as someone who shares their journey from grief to advocacy. Later that evening, a small celebration unfolds at Amara's home. Not of victory, the work remains ongoing, but of progress worth acknowledging. Zora has been accepted to law school, following her father's path. Key members of the task force share stories from the year's challenges. Captain Elliott's replacement, a reform-minded leader committed to community engagement, discusses improvements in the department where it all began. As conversations flow around her living room, Amara steps outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The night sky stretches above, the same stars that witnessed her journey from that rain-soaked traffic stop to today's milestone. Her secure phone buzzes a text from the Attorney General. President watching your press conference. Said it reminded him why he appointed you. Well done. A small smile touches her lips. The validation is welcome but unnecessary. She knows the value of the work, sees it in the faces of those whose lives have changed, because one person in power experienced what countless others had endured without recourse. From her porch, Amara can see her neighbors going about their evening routines, cooking dinner, helping with homework, living ordinary lives in the expectation of fair treatment. That expectation, once a privilege for some, inches closer to becoming a reality for all, because systems can change when truth is elevated above comfort, when justice is valued above convenience. The door opens behind her, and Zora steps out. "Everyone's asking for you, Mom. Agent Cortez is telling that story about the Chicago raid again." Amara smiles. "I'll be right in." "You okay?" Zora asks. Perceptive as always. "More than okay," Amara confirms, gazing once more at the peaceful neighborhood, just remembering how a single moment can change everything if you're prepared to follow where it leads. As mother and daughter return inside to their gathered friends and colleagues, the camera pulls back, revealing Amara's ordinary-looking house on an ordinary-looking street unremarkable, except for the extraordinary work being done within its walls. Work that continues beyond this moment of acknowledgement, beyond this story's conclusion, into a future where justice delayed truly is not justice denied. Have you ever felt powerless in the face of injustice? Have you witnessed wrong being done but lacked the authority to make it right? Amara Wilson's journey reminds us that change begins with bearing witness to others' suffering and to our own. It continues when we refuse to accept the way things are as the way they must remain. Justice isn't a destination we reach once and celebrate. It's a path we walk daily, through systems that resist change and comfortable patterns that perpetuate harm. The arc of the moral universe may bend toward justice, but only when enough hands pull it in that direction, hands like yours, adding strength to the work begun by others. What seems impossible today becomes inevitable tomorrow when enough people stand firm in truth. When you witness injustice, remember Director Wilson standing in the rain, transforming a moment of personal humiliation into a catalyst for systemic change. Then ask yourself, what truth am I called to witness? What change might begin with me?